I never meant to reveal who I really was that evening. For 3 years, I had lived quietly as Emma, a regular office worker married to Joseph Zhang. His mother, Eleanor Zhang, often reminded me how ordinary I was and how unworthy I was of her son or their supposedly prestigious family. If only she knew the truth. That night was meant to be Eleanor's big moment. It was the grand opening of the Zhang family hotel, their first luxury property. Eleanor had spent months boasting about it, telling everyone that their family was finally rising to Shanghai's elite. What she didn't know was that the towering 68-story hotel actually belonged to my family's company, Chen International Hotels. We had allowed their small company to manage it as a test to see if they were capable of handling more properties in the future. 4 months, I had quietly watched Eleanor strut around like she owned the world, bossing around staff and making poor decisions. Still, I kept my promise to my father, the CEO of Chen International. He always said, "Learning comes best through experience, my little butterfly," using his favorite nickname for me. That night, Eleanor had planned a grand celebration in the ballroom, full of glittering chandeliers and Shanghai's wealthiest people. I stood by Joseph, wearing a plain black dress that Eleanor had already mocked as looking cheap. "Can't you at least try to look like you belong here?" she had snapped while adjusting her fancy gown. "This is an important night for our family." She only used our family when she needed something from me. I stayed quiet as Eleanor mingled with guests, introducing Joseph to potential investors and leaving me behind. Joseph's sister, Isabella, wasn't much better. She flaunted her new fiancé, a banker, making sure everyone knew he drove a Mercedes. "Emma, be a dear and get me some champagne," Isabella called out loudly enough for the guests to hear. "Isn't that what you used to do as a waitress?" I had never been a waitress, but Isabella enjoyed spreading lies about my so-called humble past. I got her champagne without a word, reminding myself of my father's advice to stay patient and observe. The tipping point came during Eleanor's speech. "Welcome, dear guests, to the crown jewel of the Zhang family empire," she said, beaming with pride. "This hotel represents our commitment to excellence and luxury. My son Joseph will take over as general manager, with the help of his," she hesitated, her smile stiffening, "wife." She made the word wife sound like something dirty. "Though, perhaps," she added, pretending to sound concerned, "we should consider whether someone with more polished experience might be better for the role. Our guests expect nothing but the best." The room grew quiet and awkward. Joseph fidgeted beside me but, as always, stayed silent. Isabella took her chance to add insult. She grabbed the microphone. "Mother's right. Emma's not exactly what you'd expect for a top hotel like this, is she? I mean, look at her dress," she said, laughing as champagne splashed from her glass. "Maybe she should start in housekeeping instead." That's when my phone buzzed. A message from my father. "The board has seen enough. Time to wrap this up. Little butterfly." 3 years of observations. 3 years of notes about their management style, their treatment of staff, their financial decisions. 3 years of watching Eleanor and Isabella's arrogance grow along with their ambitions, all leading to this moment. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. "Actually," I said, my voice clear and confident, "I do have some hospitality experience." Eleanor's face darkened. "Emma, don't embarrass yourself." "Chen International Hotels," I continued, watching their expressions. "Perhaps you've heard of us? 47 luxury properties across Asia? This building is our 48th. Isabella laughed nervously. "What are you talking about? This is our hotel, is it?" I smiled, reaching for my clutch. "Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Emma, daughter of James Chen, CEO of Chen International Hotels. For the past 3 years, I've been evaluating the Zhang family group's potential as property managers for our expansion projects." I pulled out my business card, not the simple one I'd been using, but my real one. "Executive Director, Chen International Hotels." Eleanor's face went pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "You're lying." "Am I?" I nodded to the ballroom entrance, where my father had just arrived with our board of directors. "Perhaps you'd like to ask him yourself?" The room erupted in whispers. Joseph stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Isabella dropped her champagne glass, the crystal shattering on the floor. 3 years of documentation, I continued, my voice carrying across the silent room. 3 years of watching you mistreat staff, make poor financial decisions, and demonstrate exactly why you should never be trusted with a luxury property. Eleanor stumbled forward, her designer dress suddenly looking cheap in her desperation. "Emma, darling, we were just joking. You know how much we love having you in the family. The board has made its decision." I cut her off. Zhang Family Group's management contract is terminated, effective immediately. Our own management team will be taking over operations tomorrow morning. Isabella screamed. You can't do this. We invested everything. You invested nothing. I corrected her. Chen International paid for everything. Your family was merely testing a management position. A test you failed spectacularly. The ballroom had become a theater of shocked faces and furious whispers. Shanghai's elite loved nothing more than watching the mighty fall, and the Zhangs were falling hard. Joseph finally found his voice. Emma, why didn't you tell me? I turned to my husband, seeing the confusion and hurt in his eyes. Would it have changed anything? Would you have stood up to them? Protected me from their constant insults? His silence was answer enough. Mr. Chen, Eleanor rushed toward my father as he approached. There must be some mistake. We can explain. My daughter's reports have been quite thorough, my father said coldly. 3 years of documented mismanagement, harassment, and poor decision-making. The board's decision is unanimous. I watched as everything Eleanor had bragged about, everything she'd built her ego upon, crumbled around her. Isabella was sobbing, her mascara running down her face. Their carefully cultivated image of wealth and sophistication shattered like her champagne glass on the marble floor. Security will escort you out, I said quietly. You have until tomorrow to remove your personal belongings from the management offices. As security approached, Eleanor's face contorted with rage. You deceived us, pretended to be poor, infiltrated our family. I stepped closer, my voice low enough that only she could hear. No, Eleanor, you showed me exactly who you are. I just watched and took notes. The security team led them toward the exit, Isabella's wails echoing off the marble walls. Joseph stood frozen, torn between following his family and staying with his wife, the woman he'd finally realized he didn't know at all. I turned to address the gathered crowd, channeling every lesson in poise and leadership my father had taught me. Distinguished guests, please enjoy the remainder of the evening. Chen International Hotels welcomes you to our newest property. The band resumed playing, waiters circulated with fresh champagne. The elite of Shanghai resumed their conversations, now with juicy new gossip to discuss. My father touched my shoulder gently. Well done, little butterfly. I watched Joseph finally follow his family toward the exit, shoulders slumped in defeat. 3 years of marriage ending with a walk of shame through our hotel lobby. But as I stood in that glittering ballroom, my true identity finally revealed, I realized this wasn't an ending at all. It was just the beginning. The next morning would bring new challenges, restructuring the hotel's management, damage control with the press, and inevitably, divorce proceedings. But for now, I allowed myself to feel the satisfaction of justice served. Eleanor had always said I wasn't good enough for her family. She never stopped to consider that her family wasn't good enough for me. The morning after the grand opening, Shanghai social media exploded with news about the Zhang family's humiliation. Videos of Eleanor and Isabella being escorted out by security had already gone viral on WeChat, but I had more important things to focus on. I arrived early at the hotel, wearing one of my real designer suits, Chanel, not the department store clothes Eleanor had always criticized. The staff gathered in the lobby looked nervous, unsure about their futures under new management. Good morning, I addressed them, my voice firm but kind. I know last night's events have left you with questions. First, let me assure you that your jobs are secure. In fact, many of you will be receiving the raises that Mrs. Zhang repeatedly denied, despite my recommendations. The relief in the room was palpable. I'd spent 3 years quietly noting which employees worked hardest, who showed real talent for hospitality, who needed more training, and who had suffered most under Eleanor's tyrannical management style. Miss Chen, my assistant Lucy approached, tablet in hand. She'd been one of my father's most trusted employees, planted as a junior receptionist to help monitor the situation. The Zhangs are in the management office, refusing to leave. They're demanding to speak with you. Of course they were. When I entered the office, Eleanor, Isabella, and Joseph were going through files, desperately searching for something they could use as leverage. This is corporate theft, I said calmly, watching them freeze. Security has already documented your actions. Corporate theft? Eleanor spun around, her perfectly styled hair now disheveled. Everything in this office belongs to the Zhang family. Actually, I held up my phone, displaying the management contract. According to Section 7.2, all operational documents, files, and data are property of Chen International Hotels. Your access expired at midnight. Isabella slammed a drawer shut. You think you're so clever, don't you? Tricking us for 3 years, playing the poor little wife. I never tricked anyone, I replied. You assumed I was poor, because I didn't flaunt wealth like you do. You assumed I was beneath you, because it made you feel superior. Those were your choices. Joseph finally spoke up. Emma, I know I should have defended you. Can we talk privately? Maybe work this out? I studied my husband's face, still handsome, but now I could clearly see the weakness in his character that I'd tried to ignore for 3 years. Our marriage was a management evaluation project that's now complete, I said coolly. My lawyers will contact you about divorce proceedings. Divorce? Eleanor shrieked. You can't divorce him. Do you know what this scandal will do to our family's reputation? I raised an eyebrow. Your reputation was built on lies and pretense. I simply revealed the truth. The truth? Isabella laughed bitterly. The truth is you're a spy, a deceiver. Wait until the press hears how the mighty Chin family conducts business. Go ahead, I smiled, pulling out another document. But first, you might want to review the confidentiality agreements you signed 3 years ago. The ones that prevent you from discussing any aspect of your relationship with Chin International Hotels. The penalties for violation are substantial. Eleanor snatched the document, her face paling as she read. They had signed everything without reading the fine print, too eager to prove themselves worthy of managing a luxury hotel. You can't do this to us, she whispered. We'll be ruined. You did this to yourselves. I corrected her. Security will escort you out. Again, try to maintain some dignity this time. As they were led away, Joseph lingered at the door. I did love you, Emma. No, I said softly. You loved the idea of me, the quiet, submissive wife who tolerated your family's abuse. That person never existed. After they left, I spent the morning in meetings with department heads, outlining the changes needed to bring the hotel up to Chin International standards. By afternoon, social media was buzzing with a new twist. Leaked documents showing Eleanor had been inflating occupancy reports and Isabella had been charging personal expenses to the hotel accounts. I hadn't leaked the documents, but I wasn't surprised when Lucy told me that several former employees had chosen to share evidence of the Zhang's mismanagement. Karma has a way of compound interest. A week later, I was reviewing the hotel's improved performance charts when my father visited my office, the same office where Eleanor had once held court like a queen. The board is impressed, he said, studying the numbers. Revenue up 40% in just 7 days. Staff turnover down to 0. Guest satisfaction scores climbing. Amazing what happens when you actually know how to run a luxury hotel. I smiled. And the Zhangs? I pulled up a report on my laptop. Eleanor and Isabella were seen shopping at a discount mall yesterday. Apparently, their credit cards were declined at their usual luxury boutiques. Joseph's applications to other hotel groups have all been rejected. Seems no one wants to hire a manager who didn't notice his own hotel wasn't really his. Father chuckled. You know, when I suggested this undercover evaluation 3 years ago, your mother thought I was crazy. Let her run the Hong Kong property instead, she said. Why make her suffer through this charade? Mom never did enjoy the investigative side of business. I grinned. But you taught me well. Sometimes you have to let people reveal their true nature before you can make an informed decision. And your true nature? He asked softly. Are you ready to reveal that to someone new? I knew what he meant. The press had been speculating about my newly single status, and several prominent business families had already made inquiries. One day, I said, turning back to my work, but right now, I'm exactly where I need to be. That evening, I stood at the hotel's rooftop bar, watching the sunset paint Shanghai's skyline in gold. A server brought me a glass of champagne, the same expensive brand Isabella had always insisted on drinking to prove her sophistication. My phone buzzed with a message from Lucy. Mrs. Zhang spotted trying to make dinner reservation, claimed she's still owner's mother-in-law, was escorted out. I smiled, sipping my champagne. Eleanor never did know when to admit defeat. Another message popped up, this one from my mother. Saw the latest numbers. Proud of you, darling. By the way, the Lee family's son is back from Harvard Business School. I turned off my phone. Mom never could resist playing matchmaker. The truth was, I didn't need a man to complete my story. I was Emma Chen, daughter of James Chen, trained since childhood to recognize true value, in properties, in people, and in myself. Eleanor had spent 3 years trying to tear down my confidence, never realizing she was up against a lifetime of preparation for leadership. Isabella had mocked my simple clothes, not understanding that true power doesn't need designer labels to prove its worth. And Joseph had chosen silence and comfort over standing up for what was right. In the end, that choice cost him everything. As I watched the city lights begin to twinkle on, I thought about Eleanor's favorite phrase, appearance is everything. She was wrong. Character is everything. Integrity is everything. The truth, no matter how long it takes to come out, is everything. My phone buzzed again, a photo from the management team at our Hong Kong property, showing their record-breaking occupancy numbers. Beat this. Shanghai, read the caption. I grinned, already planning improvements. Eleanor might have thought she was teaching me my place in the world, but she'd actually taught me something far more valuable. Never underestimate a woman who appears to have nothing. She might just own everything you think is yours. The end. P.S. 6 months later, Eleanor and Isabella were seen working as sales clerks at the discount mall. Apparently, their new manager is very strict about punctuality and proper behavior toward customers. Sometimes karma comes with a name tag and an employee discount.